Good afternoon. How are you? I'm getting my break so that my mental muscles may work. The Jefferson report, the weather report, is that it's about 44 degrees and it's a little chilly and there's no wind, but it's sort of creeping into my bones today. The latest big news breaking story I heard, and I haven't read the order because I only heard about it, but it says that Judge Chutkan, who has the federal prosecution against Trump alone pending before her, has now issued a stay of all proceedings in the court, awaiting upon what the Supreme Court decides to do. No guts, no glory. Why would anybody trust the Supreme Court? So what else could she do? If I understand correctly, she could just continue unless and until somebody does stay what she's doing. But I think the better course is to keep on going and prepare for the March trial. It is December, and March, in a case that can be this complicated, requires preparation. And one of the questions I have is, when is deference malfeasance? Which is another way to put accusations against the Attorney General, members of Congress, and so many other people, which is that the accounting for action is non-existent. We talk about it, we hear a lot about it, but then we don't follow through. And I had my reservations, although I respect the intelligence of another lawyer to make a judgment, particularly when that lawyer has staff studying this question and probably studying carefully what these justices may do. But this is this is a worse Supreme Court than the one that decided Bush against Gore. And so we are excited by the possibility that this Supreme Court will do the right thing. They may, but that wouldn't be my starting point. And I know others are excited that this could take what is a frivolous issue, whether or not the former President Trump, enjoys immunity from prosecution, which I think was settled by Nixon, the Nixon case, and that should mean that Trump's position is frivolous. And so our lawyers are thinking, since it's frivolous, we can get this and just push it out of the way and then move on. Because I do not read Special Counsel Smith as saying, well, if they want to get rid of the case, then that's fine with me. I don't think that's his attitude. I think he and his counsel believe this is such a frivolous position by Trump that we can get past this so we can try the case, and he's figuring that they will follow the law. Now, I have a few more years on Smith, but his experience is terrific, really. I mean that genuinely. And I understand his thought process. But as soon as you start crediting a damaged system to act as it once was and should act, you're in a dangerous position as an advocate. That's all I can say. So I hope Jack is right. I still would not have done what the judge did, but I'm not on the bench, so that's on me. There's another couple of matters about the law. Michael Cohen's counsel apparently submitted arguments to the court now some time ago, and he cited, well, I don't know if it's a male or female. His lawyer cited cases that don't exist. And this has been brought to the attention of the judge, and the judge is investigating it. Now, right off the bat, you would think if you know something is not a real case, it'd be pretty stupid, not just dishonorable, to cite a case to the court. But I've had two experiences that make me think this is not willful misleading of the court, but we'll find out. Number one is when I was a young prosecutor, I was surprised at defense counsel that seemed to me to be very articulate, and they submitted me papers citing cases. The cases did exist, but the holding in the cases was a football field away from what the case actually held. And this is the kind of terms, as you may know, lawyers use. Held meaning, on these facts, this law means such, and that's the holding. And the holding seems to have something to do with your case, and then you follow it. Okay. But then I realized that some of these defense lawyers were overtaxed, and they were reading the head notes, and the head notes summarized what the case was about and didn't always get it right. Okay, so that's somewhat removed from what's happening in the U.S. District Court, I guess in New York, rather. So the second experience I've had, which sounds more likely, is, I don't know if you've been following what artificial intelligence has been used for in the law. Now, as part of my continuing legal education, I try to keep up on that, and I've attended several lectures on it and read some materials. Some law firms have found that their younger associates are using artificial intelligence to research matters and then submitting them because they just can't keep up. But in these cases that are cited, that are created by artificial intelligence, they are literally created. They don't exist. So it feels a little bit like maybe some associate used artificial intelligence to put together an argument for the court, and that's where the fictional cases come from. Anyhow, it'd be interesting, as somewhat less important than Judge Chutkan's decision, if that is the explanation. Artificial intelligence is only as smart as what the programmer made it. It doesn't have an independent life. It goes off and becomes a real-life robot, or like the movie Lucy, takes over our entire system of computers and can still have a reality experience in the world beyond. There's some fascinating fictional things going on. So there's that. Hunter Biden gave a speech today rather than comply with a subpoena. His speech was somewhat of a political success, I think, in that it said, there's nothing I've ever done, and I've done some dumb things that involve my dad. And so impeachment doesn't have anything to do with whatever errors I've made. That's kind of a simpler summary because I did hear his statement earlier, and I thought it was well done, but it ignores the other question, and that is, if Democrats are going to challenge people to appear for subpoenas, then Republicans have that right as well, and they've made that argument. So what would I have done besides that speech? Because the speech basically says, I'll appear in public and I won't appear behind closed doors. Now, while I think the system is abused when it does that, we do have a person who has a pending criminal case. And so probably, I don't represent him, and I don't presume to replace Abby Hoffman with me. Abby Lowell, excuse me. That's a funny slip, isn't it? Because Abby Lowell is not quite as like Abby Hoffman. So in the case that he has, I would think you'd be concerned about his Fifth Amendment rights. And so since even behind closed doors it's going to be under oath, I think you'd be hard-pressed to answer anything except name, date of birth, and some other rare identifying information. So that's that. I assume that Rudy may get on the stand today. I can't imagine how he's going to do that. It would not be a choice as his counsel that I would do that. Although I think that it may be a mistake in civil or criminal cases, if you can avoid it, to put your client on the stand, because it makes real some of the charges, which can help make all the charges real. Anyhow, that's a feeling I have. There's a story that makes me think of shades of Paul Newman and Robert Redford about prisons using inmate labor for private firms, and that's a case in Alabama. And we have an outstanding lawyer who's a professor at American U, Ira Robbins, who's dealt with this issue, and I haven't had a chance to send him an email or see if he's writing or talking about it. But this is problematic. Basically, slave labor, coerced labor for private profit. There's just so much opportunity for corruption there. It's just not right. There's something new going on, which is they want to put in the new cars drunken driving sensors. And I'm against that for a variety of reasons. I understand the safety argument, but what are we going to do next? We're going to put sensors on our body, a little pack we'll carry around all the time. Before law school, I was interested in privacy, which may seem somewhat frivolous for me to say it, since I have a semi-public identity, I guess. But there are things people just aren't entitled to know. Now, if you choose to disclose it, that's one thing, but otherwise, you're not entitled to know things. And the notion that you would get into a car and the car would not start unless you could breathe into it air that was substance-free, that is, that could compromise your ability to drive, that just runs against my sense of freedom, because I can't imagine how you stop that. You can then justify anything for safety. And the police state seems not so far away every day, doesn't it? Now, having said that, I think you should all run out, if you haven't, and got vaccinated, because we're concerned about viruses, COVID and RSV. And this is no joke, and apparently it's on the rise right now. And Holly and I are more careful about it, but even as careful as we are with masking and distance and stuff like that, we're always concerned, is it enough? Because what will it take? In the category of crazy and can't fix it, we have Congresswoman Gunnar Green, who is saying we shouldn't be giving money to Ukraine because it's just a scam. She's calling the war a scam. So, of the people that I distrust, Zelensky doesn't make the top 1,000. I believe he's genuine for a whole variety of reasons, including the fact that he was more a private citizen than a player in politics before he became their leader. And he's conducted himself, it seems to me, consistently transparent to those things he could discuss and on behalf of his nation state. So I think that Green is just running her own scam to discourage people from supporting Ukraine, which favors Putin, which compromises NATO, which compromises our allies, just one nation state away from Russia. So this is something that we can't ignore. Also, we have to keep in mind that COP28 has concluded and didn't accomplish a great deal, in the sense that it's a mixture. And in the days ahead, we'll end up taking it apart and finding out what can be salvaged. The language got better. They waved their hands and said, we're concerned about fossil fuels, but they didn't really stop it, so that's a concern. And it comes out on a day when we're talking about how the Arctic is suffering from global warming. It's having wildfires, floods, it's having glacial outbursts, and this is a very bad sign. You would think it would be the kind of thing that the climate deniers would have to accept. I mean, ice melts, fires happen, droughts occur. These things are real. Maybe the planet's going to do us in and then go on its merry way without us. But years ago, I'm talking about, the story today is about the Arctic, but years ago, Holly and I went to Antarctica, and she had played my editor and spec engine finding typos and stuff on a book I wrote about pain in America and how a government makes it worse. And I said, well, that was good. She said, you wanted to write a book? I said, well, this isn't exactly the one that I wanted to write, but I'm glad I did because I think it'll help people. And she says, now we got to talk about what you're going to do for me. And she said, I want to go to Antarctica. And my first reaction was, why? And I became a convert because I read a great deal about the region, and we found ourselves at a research facility on the ground in Antarctica in the summer of Antarctica, which is to us like the worst winter anywhere where we could ever live other than Antarctica. And I sat with a researcher for a while and I asked what she thought about global warming and what was happening in Antarctica. And she said, well, there are easy ways for us to tell that we're in trouble. She said, it's getting warmer here, we can tell that. But we also see that the krill are going away. And I'll put up a picture of one. Looks like a mini lobster maybe, or certain insects. But krill are great food for penguins and whales. And as they diminish, it affects the inventory of penguins and whales and other creatures that depend on the krill. And in one of these Klondikes, Holly and I got into very carefully not to fall in the water and become a popsicle. There were krill crawling on various parts of the ship, and it was fascinating. They're really gorgeous to look at, and a food source. But it's these things, studying small habitats and how rich they are, which can allow you to project what our concerns have to be. And it's gotten worse because since that time, now years ago, I don't remember what year we were there, the krill are being harvested for sale. And Antarctica had kind of a hands-off attitude among the nation states that researched or were present there. And that's changed. People are harvesting the krill and putting it in your vitamin box. And so there are serious problems environmentally up and down the line, and you know, somebody doesn't pay attention to it, it's suicide by stupidity. So that's what I got today. Rambled on a little bit, and I hope to be out tomorrow in between my writings, and I'll talk to you then from my tree-lined lane, the Cathedral of Trees. All the best. Bye-bye.